Hello. Have you ever felt like you're juggling so many different artistic income streams that you're kind of dropping the balls on all of them? Maybe you're creating original paintings on Monday, teaching a workshop on Tuesday, designing digital products on Wednesday, selling prints on Thursday, and wondering why none of them are really taking off by Friday. Here's what most multi-passionate artists don't realize. The fastest path to a thriving, diverse art business isn't trying to build multiple income streams simultaneously at once. It's actually choosing one stream and going all in on it for a focused period of time. Hi there, my name is Kay, and I am the host and founder of The Artist's Guide to Business, as well as the artist of K Potter Fine Art, and I want to welcome you to this week's episode. So join me as we open up our imaginary guidebook and dive into today's main topic, the power of one. Why multi-passionate artists should consider mastering a single income stream first. So today I am going to share with you why trying to build multiple income streams at once is actually slowing you down on your path to a sustainable art business. We'll talk about the counterintuitive magic of strategic constraint and why temporarily limiting your business focus can dramatically accelerate your growth. And I'll show you how committing to one income stream for maybe 6 to 9 to 12 months can give you systems, confidence, and financial stability to thoughtfully expand later. Because the reality is that most artists want more income stability, but few will achieve it because they're spreading themselves too thin across multiple streams. All these artists are spinning their wheels trying to master everything at once, but they're missing the strategic power of temporary specialization. So I want you to just take a second and consider it in your own life and business. Like, what if instead of constantly switching between 5 different business models and never really getting traction with any of them, what if you could just focus on one that actually works? And what if mastering that one income stream first could create the foundation financially and energetically for everything else that you dream of doing? It's not just like I can come in here and tell you to focus on one thing. Not only does that kind of go in the face of all the conventional wisdom that is spread out across the internet, but it's also like not that easy for creative people who have tons of great ideas, who are constantly coming up with new inspirations, and who are excited about all the possibilities. The truth is it choosing a single focus requires confronting some of our fears about missing out, our concerns about getting bored creatively or becoming like a machine that just makes the same thing. We have to confront our own tendencies to chase the excitement of the new idea over the discipline of executing the same one until it's really solid. It's not that easy, but we're going to dig in today. And, this episode is for pretty much all the artists out there. There is nuance and there is caveats. Just like I always say with my episodes, trust yourself first, but let yourself listen to this episode with an open mind, because by the end of it, I am pretty confident that you'll understand why I am suggesting strategic constraint is the actual fastest way to artistic and financial freedom. And then you'll also get to see how temporarily limiting your focus doesn't actually restrict your creativity in the way that it feels like it will. In fact, it gives a solid foundation to let your creativity actually flourish and branch out. So also make sure you listen to the end so that you can get your weekly single step and your point of interest, 2 segments to help you take action in your business this week. Okay, so let's open up that guidebook and dive in. First, let's talk about why we multi-passionate creatives struggle so much with focusing on just one thing. If you have ever described yourself as multi-passionate, quick to start, idea rich, you know the blessing and the curse of constant inspiration. One day you're convinced that greeting card designs are your ticket to financial freedom. The next day it's pet portraits. By the end of the week, you're researching how to create online courses and wondering if you should start a YouTube channel. I mean, I can relate to all of these things, and I think I've done them all. This is definitely coming from a lived experience, I promise you. Yeah, so anyway, it's just so funny. But it's true, because each idea feels so promising in that lovely land of inspiration. This is where we're going to get into it, guys. Every new direction, like that you think about, like, oh, I should do this. Oh, I should do this. It creates a rush of excitement, open possibilities. It's exciting and fun. And honestly, this creative capacity for divergent thinking, seeing the chances or the opportunities, the positive optimism, it's a superpower. It's part of what makes artists so valuable in our world. Now, the hard truth, though, or the reality of that, is that ideas are worth nothing without execution. And execution, the kind that leads to real income and impact, it does require sustained focus and long-term dedication. The other thing is, everything looks like a great idea until you're in the messy middle, or until you're into it a little bit further than when it was an optimistic, fun, and exciting idea. I have talked to so many business owners or creative people or just people who are looking for a way out of their 9-to-5. And they've always got this really big, bright, shiny idea. And whenever they tell me about it, they light up and I'm on board. I light up too and everything like that. Let me promise you, as someone who has been in self-employment, in entrepreneurship for 10 plus years, those shiny ideas will always feel that way. There will always be a time they feel that way, even if they're not going to work, or even if they're not the greatest idea. They still sound like it, they still feel like it, they still look like it. And almost all of them, if you start pursuing them, will feel heavy and drudgery, and you'll learn things you didn't expect. There's going to be tons of stuff you didn't know about, that you couldn't have known about until you get into it. And they will all be less exciting and beautiful and shiny and wonderful once you get into them. That resistance, or that hard, messy part, it doesn't mean the idea isn't working, and it doesn't mean it's not a good idea. But it is required to move through that stuff to see success. Okay? This is just something I've seen in real observation from artists, but also myself, and also essentially like every entrepreneur book that I've ever read. But you really don't know what it feels like to be in that messy stage. And what it feels like is that this isn't working and I should come up with a new plan. That's what it feels like. The successful people, the successful artists, entrepreneurs, often through painful trial and error, they temporarily constrain their focus to a single stream of income until they get that up and working. Now, obviously, sometimes things don't work, but you have to go through a lot to give it the chance to work. And if you're not focused on it, if you're trying different things, you're not giving it that opportunity. Okay? So let's just imagine for a second that you're an artist and you're coming to me and you feel overwhelmed, you feel underpaid despite the fact that you're working constantly. And you're like excited. You're like, I have all these things going on. I have original paintings, I have prints, I have commissions, I teach local workshops, I have a few online courses. I also license my work in a few places. And then I also do all this like social media content creation as a contract work for this one other business. Like, I will look at you and I also, that is incredibly impressive, like amazing. But then I'm going to follow up with the question of which one generates the most income for you and which one do you enjoy the most? If your answer is none of them, really, that you just make a little bit of income from all of them, but because you're constantly switching between them, you never get to develop one fully, then we have a problem. This is the multi-passionate trap. We convince ourselves that jumping between the multiple income streams is actually smart business diversification, but it's actually preventing any single stream from reaching its full potential and getting really deep. So then I might ask you, like, if you chose just one of those streams of income for the next 9 months and you went all in on it, which one would you choose? And what would it look like? It might bring up a lot of anxiety in you to hear that question, because then you're going to ask me, like, okay, what about all my other skills and my interests? Won't I be limiting myself if I pick just one? And then what if I pick the wrong one? And I'll tell you, I understand all these fears. They're totally like common. I've had them. Other people have them. But I want to reassure you, like a temporary focus, even 9 months, even though that sounds like a long time, that is pretty temporary in the grand scheme of things. And it isn't actually a limitation. More so, it's a strategic decision that will actually accelerate your path to create that diverse business that you ultimately want. Think of it like this. When you're trying to start a fire with limited resources, do you place one flame under like a single log until it catches, or do you divide that flame into 7 tiny little sparks that you throw at lots of different logs? No, you want that one central strong flame that gives it the best chance to catch that log on fire, and then you can, from that fire, you can take strong sparks to the other logs. I don't know what circumstance this is that you would be needing to do that, but you get the idea, right? Yeah. So there is a distinction, though, a critical distinction. There's a time to experiment, and then there is a time to focus. So if you haven't found something that genuinely sells yet, not just in theory, not just in compliments, not just in your best friend saying like, yeah, I think I would totally buy that, but in actual money changing hands. So pony up, best friend, let me see it, then yes, it's good to move really quickly and experiment with a few different avenues to resonate, or to see what resonates with your audience and to see what you can make work with the current network that you have. Or you can start expanding your network, expanding your email list, expanding, your audience essentially. And then do market testing. That's essentially what it's called, to find out what you can sell to people. Like, what are they going to buy? There's a lot of experimentation that comes with being a professional artist. Your one hit genius idea usually arrives after a lot of other halfway received or, coolly received work is made, So there is that, go for it, experiment, try different things and see what people are really excited about, what they feel connected to, and then what they're going to pay for. But once you have evidence that something does sell, that it is something you can essentially repeat, you don't have to repeat the art, but whatever, that it has a few successful backers and transactions, that might be a really great signal to stop and to think, all right, what if I go deeply in this direction and pause any pivoting and shifting right now and focus completely on developing this income stream fully? Okay, so I can share with you my own experience. Like when I was building my art business, I was totally trying everything under the sun. I had group shows. I was doing craft fairs poorly. I still do craft fairs kind of poorly because I just never have gotten organized or committed to them. But I like the social aspect to it. I was doing print sales. I was teaching. You name it. I was doing everything. And then I noticed that there was one series that was really popular. And so I went in all in on that series and I sold it out. Thousands of dollars of original artwork. It was fantastic. I loved it. And let's see what happened. I did sell some like limited edition prints in that series too, and that was great. And honestly, you guys, I probably could have kept going in that direction and found some good success. So this is where my lessons, this is where my mistakes get to be your benefit. I gave up on that art form, on those originals, and on those limited edition prints too early. I got some really negative feedback from what I considered at the time an authority. And they essentially said the art I was making was art that exists everywhere. It was so brutal. And it was just, a style that was really popular these days and anyone could do. I was not developed enough or resilient enough to get that kind of feedback at that time. I shouldn't have looked for it. I shouldn't have asked for it. And I definitely should not have read it. Because I took it to heart and I fully started shifting into different styles of art based on that feedback. And I left behind the style that was working. Like I left it behind. I had sold these originals to people for thousands of dollars and I'd sold limited edition prints. That's the evidence, not someone sitting in a committee, with giving faceless feedback. Yeah. That's really crazy. So I really steered away from that because I thought, wow, I'm just apparently making work that everybody else is making. I don't want that. And then I just kind of lost my voice. Around that time, though, I was starting to get into pet portraits. I was finding I really enjoyed making commission work for people who were local. I could do them in a really fun style that I felt was my own. I was really enjoying them and they were getting a really strong response. They could be consistent and it didn't feel like people were just complimenting them because they were literally pulling out their wallets. So then I did make a decision and it felt terrifying at the time, but I decided to focus really exclusively on pet portraits for a full year. No other income streams, no major distractions, just really becoming a great pet portrait artist, building the systems around that service, finding out exactly how to talk to people about it. Was it sometimes boring? Absolutely. Like there were definitely days when I thought like, if I have to paint another dog, I'm going to lose my mind. But they were really limited, honestly, because every painting, even though it's another dog, it's a full, fun, new creative project. That's the thing. We think like, if I stick to one thing, I'm going to limit my creativity, but you're not. And then you're always going to be learning on top of it because every painting is different, And then there would be these moments of exciting new opportunities coming along. And yeah, it would be really hard to say, no, I'm not going to do this craft fair, this market fair, art market. Like, no, I'm not set up to do that right now. Or if people were starting a new gallery space, like, hey, we'd love to have your work in here, I would say no, because I didn't have the new work for that. And if I created it, it would be pulling my attention away from what I was focused on at that time. And so here's what I experienced. I really became very comfortable and mastered in the way that I create my pet portraits. It caused it to have this casual attention just on and off, that made everything so much easier. And now when I go to do pet portraits, it's like riding a bike. It is developed. The process is there. I know what mistakes to look out for. I know what shortcuts my brain tries to take because it always somehow still tries to take the same ones. I know how to do it, right? And I have really solid systems for client communication because I know what needs to be said. And even if I don't use the template every time, it's a template in my brain by this time, right? I have confidence in my pricing. I've built a referral network. I still get referrals. I get clients from 3 years ago that email me and it takes one email to sell another pet portrait to them. Like that's the kind of ease that you get to experience when you take one stream of income through to see it all the way through. And I could even do that further with pet portraits at this point. But by the end of that year, my business was generating such solid income that I could afford to pay myself. And it felt so good. I could pay for my studio. Like it gives you confidence in what you're doing as an artist. And then it gives you that foundation to be able to experiment with other streams of income, right? Like, so from that, I was able to build out into live wedding painting. And I won't talk too deeply about that. But if I had been doing both at the same time, there would have been too much mixing up. Who am I talking to when I get on social media? What do my emails need to say? It just would have been too much. They're essentially two entirely different products, right? Yeah. So that just goes to show you too, like when you focus on one stream of income, you accelerate your artistic skills or the processing skills to make that a product. And you're also accelerating your skill development in your business skills exponentially. So the techniques, efficiencies, insights you gain from that concentrated, focused effort, it'll make it all so much better when you do your 50th portrait versus your 5th one. You And then also with all of those, you get to see what kind of problems arise and you get to fix those problems. You get to approach them with nuance and you get to know what's coming as you continue working with those kind of clients and customers. So compare that to having 10 different pet portraits or 10 original painting clients or 10 commissions or 10 digital products. None of these things are going to be seen all the way through versus 50 of one thing. Like 50 transactions for pet portraits is going to teach you a lot. Yeah. Okay. And then on top of just like processing and learning how it all works, there's a really clear marketing advantage to focusing on one stream of income for a set amount of time. You learn, again, your messaging becomes crystal clear. So you get to have more conversations with people who are interested in that product. You get to understand what they're thinking, what they want, what they need to hear about to build trust, what they find entertaining. Your portfolio, that also becomes more cohesive. So when people look at your website, they know what they can expect. Your position in the market becomes really strong. If you're someone who has 5 pet portraits and then, like 20 something else pieces of art and then like 3 other types of art all on your website, if someone's looking for a pet portrait, it's not an instant no, right? Like that's not going to be why they say no. But consider that versus if they come to your website and they see 25 really exceptional pet portraits, then it's a very easy yes. Does that make sense? It's a strong market position because you show experience, you show that other people have purchased it. There's a lot of powerful trust building there. So instead of being an artist who does a little bit of everything, you're the go-to artist for whatever you've chosen. Marketing, when it comes down to it, it's fundamentally about clarity and repetition. When you're constantly switching between different offerings, your audience gets confused about what you actually do. And then the converse side is when you consistently show up with a focused message, they start to learn exactly what they should be thinking about when they think of you. Okay? Again, this is all coming from, I'm not up here saying I knew all this. I have learned. All right. There's also a phenomenon that I call audience compounding. So when you serve a specific audience very consistently, they actually become really invested in your success. So they will then tell other people about you, and then they'll come back for more. So if you are an equine artist and your whole thing is that you paint horses, people who love horses will tell their friends, oh, I've got this artist who I follow and she paints nothing but horses and they're so good. I'll send you her link. That is a compounding effect. In my year of pet portrait focus, I discovered that lots of pet lovers were particularly valuable for this reason. They would hear a friend who had lost a pet and gently offer oh, I know a great artist who does pet portraits, right? Or, they would know who to call when their mom's favorite pet was worth celebrating for Christmas. There was no gap between what they needed and what they knew they could get from me, and they could share that confidently with other people. So it's a compound effect because your audience will be with other people who are like them. So yeah. And then on top of it, you just build stronger relationships. You build longer term, life values of your clients, lifelong collectors, and you just get repeat business, which is the easiest, best sales and revenue you can generate is from someone who's already bought with you. Okay. So yeah, that's basically it about why it's so helpful in a lot of different aspects to create or to choose one stream of income. And again, if it wasn't clear, let me just say it again, then you'll also have an opportunity to build really clear business system practices around it. So you'll create an email template that goes to everyone who inquires for a pet portrait artist. The first time you create that template, it might work, but it also might need refining. And you'll find out when you use it. And then you'll find out again when you use it 10 more times. You'll be able to refine it so that it becomes almost perfect, right? You get to automate repetitive tasks because you start noticing what are the repetitive tasks? What are the commonalities between every client question or every client acquisition process journey, all of that, right? So with pet portraits, I developed a complete system for the whole inquiry process. I won't dive into that here. It is in a different podcast episode that you can listen to about organizing your business. I talk about how large those systems, like the large impact they made in my own business. So if you're curious, check for that episode. Okay, the other part, here's what I really want you to hear. So let's get that energy high and let's get back into it. Here's the compounding effect of focusing on one thing for a temporary period of time is you get the benefit of momentum. You get a big shift towards actual momentum towards your growth. Because business growth is not linear. It's exponential. So what that means is once you hit a certain threshold, it's like all the labor and all the work you've been putting in, you hit that threshold and the business takes off. It's not just a straight line up, it's a parabolic curve. Once it's like a flywheel, right? Like you're working so hard every time to turn that flywheel and you keep turning it and it keeps being hard and it's laborious and you keep doing it. And then at some point you hit a threshold where it starts turning on its own. That is the moment. That's the moment you have momentum. And that, as an artist, is what you're looking for. When it starts turning on its own, that's when you refine, get it all dialed in, know what you need to do to maintain it, and then you can shift focus to another stream of income. I cannot tell you the feeling of joy you'll get when that first easy sale comes in because that flywheel is just cranking. Like it's so crazy. You'll wonder what is wrong because you're like, I have had to work and labor and do so much every time. And then all of a sudden it feels easy and it's amazing. And I want that for you. Okay. So that's what building a successful income stream feels like. It feels like for so long that it's not working until suddenly it is. And there's a threshold that you have to cross before you see that dramatic result. You know, I like to think of it as like the 231 syndrome. You know, like it's like if you were an old-timey Civil War person writing a letter home, like, Dear Dad, this is day 231 of me posting on Instagram about pet portraits, and I worry I'm starting to repeat myself. Is my creative spirit even alive? Only time will tell. You know, like it's just like, oh, how am I just doing this over and over again? But boy, when that payoff comes, it is nice. You know, repetition feels boring. I get it. We question it. We wonder if our approach is even working. We like lose that excitement or that optimism. But this is all, honestly, you guys, this is all documented. This is how businesses grow. This is how they work. You have to get through this phase. Feels like slogging through the mud. I mean, in your business, like your friends will be like, hey, how's business going? And it's going to start sucking because you'll be like, yep, it's going. I'm just doing the same things. You know, like there's not this like amazing, like, it's not just like constant breakthroughs. It's just like, yep, I woke up and I did the same thing I did yesterday, you know, but it's that sustainable, like it's like doing those reps and doing that over and over again is the way to get to that sustainable success. So you have to keep going through this phase. Like you got to go through it. It's brutal and it can be tough. But who knows, 232 or 365, something shifts and the compound effect of all of your focused effort will finally become clear and visible. Okay? It's how it works. It's amazing. And it can be kind of weird too. Like I have not been public in my community for about a year and a half now. I'm starting to reemerge, but people still know who I am and that I make pet portraits like strangers. You know what I mean? And that is so bonkers to me. And then I start worrying that I'm going to lose it because I have been so quiet for so long. But still, even after a year of essentially like being very quiet about my art making, people still know who I am. And that is that flywheel effect. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm like, honestly, kind of shocked and surprised. Okay. But you can't reach that if you cannot reach day 232 if you're constantly resetting to day one. Does that make sense? Because that's what happens. Every time you shift ideas, every time you start a full new stream of income, you're starting at day one. And like, that's what people don't tell you. They want you to buy their solution to your problems. So they don't tell you that, but you got to see it through past the shiny optimism. Okay. Let's adopt a few of the concerns and questions that artists have about focusing so much. So you might ask, well, okay, what if I get bored or creatively stifled by focusing on just one thing for 9 to 12 months? It's such a valid concern. Creative boredom is real. And it's something I've experienced. I think it's something most artists who are, in a solid stream of income have probably experienced. So first of all, just know it's coming. Normalize it. It's okay. Work is work. You don't always have to be excited and inspired. But here is how you can manage it. You can manage it by creating personal challenges for yourself within your projects. Like if you're doing nothing but pet portraits for a year, challenge yourself to do pets with different fur lengths or to set up different colored backgrounds or whatever, right? Like create these mini challenges where you experiment with new color palettes or maybe try to switch up your process a little bit and explore what it's like to do it this way versus this way. Obviously, if you're selling something, you want the final product to be at the same quality level as what your clients expect. But you can find creative ways to still stay engaged with your art making. The other thing is, we're just talking about the income generating activities in art here. You, as a human and an artist, you can still create your own personal art that explores other subjects, that explores other techniques. You don't have to just dilute yourself to fit your business, right? Like your business focus is what monetizes. It's what supports you. It's what gives you more resources to live your life and continue your business. But it is not defining who you are as a person or as an artist. Okay, so you can have your own personal art that you're making while you focus on pet portraits. Know what I mean? Like you can share it with people who are close to you. You just don't like jump instantly to turning it into another stream of income. So the next question you might come up with is like, how then do I maintain my artistic identity like while I'm kind of meeting these expectations? If I'm making a consistent body of work, how do I still explore? And am I just a robot? This fear of becoming just kind of a service provider rather than an artist is really common. And I understand why you feel that way, especially with commission-based work like live wedding painting or pet portraits. I definitely felt that for a little bit with live weddings in the beginning. Like I started feeling like I needed to make art that spoke to the wedding industry, not art that spoke to me. And then I had this massive breakthrough one night before a wedding. I was reading this beautiful book called, I can't remember right now. Something about stars. I'll put a link in the notes. This beautiful book about a violinist and all of these feelings and the whole essentially person just coming together in the body of this violinist and how that all came together to create this beautiful art. And that's when I remembered I bring myself, I bring my knowledge, I bring my years of experience to the art I make. And that's the artistic integrity. That's the artistic beauty. Like that's the inspiration. It's bringing yourself into your work fully and sincerely. That is where your artistic integrity and excitement happens. If you are literally just creating things that you don't care about and you're not showing up to make those pet portraits or to make those commissions, it may not be the best line of work for you. Or maybe you're well known for one kind of thing that you make and sell to galleries, and it's pretty well known what your style is or whatever. That can start to feel like factory work if you let it. But that's on you. If you're doing it superficially, if you're doing it surface level to just make a buck, I mean, what are we talking about then? That's your choice. But if you bring yourself into your artistic process, if you bring yourself into your art, then you're still producing something people want and have success with, that fits with everything else you do, and it has that depth. That's the beauty and truth of art right there. So how's that for an answer? But it's your unique artistic voice. Let me just give you a simpler or like a lighter answer. I like to think of it like this. In New Orleans, there are all these songs that are historic, that have been done time and time and time again through the generations. Things like Saints Go Marching In, for a really simple, easy, example. But every musician goes through a stage where they sing that song. I mean, I don't know, but they all go through it and they all sing that song at some point. That doesn't mean, though, that they are not the artist creating that music in that moment, right? Like, they are doing a genre or a song that has been done before, but they're doing it in their own voice, with their own rhythm, with their own expression, and the way they show up. Like, why as artists do we think that we have to create entirely new songs every time? We don't. And historically, artists didn't do that either. Artists followed really kind of like genre intentional paths. The bathers, right? So many of our master artists went through a time where they did the bathers. They took on somehow the human form, taking a bath, often in nature, right? Like, many artists have done that subject, but they do it in their own voice and in their own way. That's the art. It's not creating something that's never been seen before. It's talking about something that's probably been talked about before, but doing it with your voice. So that's where that depth comes from. Yeah. Okay. Might have gotten sidetracked there. I'm not sure. But my pet portraits, you guys, they are my pet portraits. That's how I create animals. Like, the way they look, the way they're stylized, all of it, it comes from me. And my clients now know to expect that, and they know what they're getting when they get it. I'm not trying to fake anything, and I'm not limiting myself. Does that make sense? Ease is not always bad. Okay, let's move on. Yeah. And then, okay, another really valid question. Will focusing exclusively on one income stream make me vulnerable during slow periods? So that is a great question, and I'm glad you're thinking of it this way. Understanding the seasonal nature of your work is crucial. For example, a lot of artists have busy seasons in the holidays and slow seasons at the rest of the year. So if it's a slow season, what's the point of trying really hard to force something if it's not natural for people to be making those purchasing decisions at that time, And the beauty of this focused approach is that you can start to then really see these fluctuations, because if you are giving it your all during a slow season and you're not seeing those sales, then this is a slow season. Or I need to change my messaging around these months to this, right? Like, so if I'm selling original art or I'm selling prints, whatever, that are nice for homes, in the December months, it might be about getting presents for people that are going to beautify their spaces, right? Like, that might be the messaging, or get yourself a present, blah, blah, blah. But then maybe that messaging needs to shift, where in, March, it becomes, I know you're doing a spring refresh. Let's get some fresh art on your walls, right? So that's the other thing is, you can, if you're focused on selling one thing throughout different seasons, you can see how to sell those things through those different seasons. You might even create special promotions for like pet birthdays or holidays, Christmas in July, like you can create different campaigns. But you can only understand that deeply if you are doing one business model. And then after you understand it, that's when you can bring in things that complement each other. So pet portraits, for me, have always been really hard to sell in January and February and into March because people are fatigued from the holiday season. They're just not thinking about it, so whatever. I learned that, and I tried a lot of different things, but I eventually found that January and February are great times to teach other people how to make art. They love coming into classes in those months because they don't have a lot of other options or things going on for themselves, at least where I live, and it's like the depths of winter. All right, let's keep it moving here. I think this is starting to get a little long, so I'll speed it up. How do I know if this approach is actually working for my business? Great question. There will be a lot of times where you doubt it. This is where tracking specific metrics comes important, like knowing that people have actually paid for it, knowing what your monthly revenue is, knowing, that there is a proven market for what you're selling, and that at this point, you're just trying to solidify how you sell it and that whole process. So any sort of financial transaction or repeat business or people recommending you to others, these are signs that you have something that will work. They're indicators telling you, keep focusing on this approach, keep building the momentum, refining your prices, making it all make sense. Oftentimes, artists will give up right before they see those significant results or they see those moments because they're tracking certain metrics that actually don't matter. So measuring and paying attention to actual like financial and word of mouth referrals, that kind of stuff, that'll really help. In these months of when you're working on one stream of income, at first you won't have all the sales that you want, and that's really hard. So you also want to just remember at that point, the goal becomes, what are you doing? What actions are you taking? How many emails are you sending? How many people are you adding to your email newsletter? How many social posts are you doing? Focusing on your actions versus the results of those actions will keep you going through it and help you to see what's actually impactful versus what's just busy work that you're just doing. Okay. So I think that you guys probably get it. Just the last couple of thoughts about it. So the important thing about creating one stream of income is to commit to it. Choose how long you're going to focus on it, and then go for it. Because you want to see that compounding return begin. And honestly, sometimes that'll take 9 to 12 months of consistent effort. Sometimes it takes even longer. I just don't want you to feel overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to commit to nothing but pet portraits for 12 months before I even see a return. Like, that's not true. You'll see effects earlier than that, but that's when you'll start to really get that flywheel going. And remember, temporary constraint is not limiting your artistic expression because you can do that on your own anytime. Temporary constraint is creating a solid foundation that will eventually support everything else that you want to do and try and experience. So it's that strategic patience that accelerates your path to create the actual diverse, sustainable art building or business you want to build. Any businesses you see out there that have 15 different streams of income as an artist, like Lisa Congdon, for example, right? She has so much going on. It took her a long time to build that business, you guys. Don't compare yourself from where you are today to where other artists are after 20 years of being in their business. Does that make sense? Okay. So some other things I think you got it. I don't think we need to go any further. If you have further questions, send me an email. Let me know. I would love to hear about it. All right. So now it's time for that part of the show where I give you a couple of quick practical things to actually do this week in your business. If you're new here, this portion of the show is quick, but we include it because we want you to always get practical, accessible, and easy to apply ideas from us. So while the main topic, like what we just talked about, may be a deep dive or a bit theoretical, this section gives you actual real life ideas that you can use today. First, welcome to One Single Step, where we share a small but meaningful action you can take this week to move yourself down your artistic pathway. Because remember, small actions taken consistently compound and build something amazing over time. This week, your single step is to set up a free Google business profile if you don't already have one. This will improve your local visibility when potential clients search for artists in your area. And even if you work primarily online or at home, a Google business profile will add legitimacy to your art business and help you appear in local searches like pet portrait artist near me. It'll take about 15 minutes to set up, but yeah, it can bring you clients to your doorstep and increase how much people trust you. Be sure to add any business hours if you have them, put up some quality images of your work, and a link to your website or your portfolio. So try it out, and remember, every small action over time compounds to something great. Next up, we have the point of interest of the week. Think of this as a spot in your journey where you can pause and create a point of interest for your fans and collectors. We'll give you a quick prompt to inspire content for you to share with your fans and collectors. Use it to write your weekly email, a blog post, social media posts, or to tell everybody at your local picnic. This week's point of interest prompt is: post a side-by-side of your earliest work next to your most recent piece. This then and now comparison creates immediate engagement as people love seeing artistic growth and evolution. Share what you've learned along the way, maybe some techniques you've improved or mindset shifts that have transformed your approach. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable about your artistic journey. This kind of authentic sharing helps collectors connect with both you and your work on a deeper level. For an extra impact, include a specific detail about what you were struggling with in the earlier piece and how you overcame that challenge. All right, last thoughts as we close the guide for this week's episode. I do hope that this exploration of strategic focus has given you permission to simplify your approach and to go deep instead of wide in your business. Remember, the most successful multi-stream art businesses, they're built sequentially over time, not simultaneously. By mastering one income stream first, you create the foundation for everything else to be easier. And if pet portraits interest you as a potential focus area, they're a really great starting point to get comfortable in business and to learn a lot of the business principles that you can apply to other streams of income down the road. And if that appeals to you, make sure to check out the complete pet portrait business system that I offer. It includes all the templates, systems, and workflows that you need to build a successful pet portrait business without the years of trial and error that I went through. You can find it at www.theartistguidetobusiness.com under the resources tab. Make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss another episode of The Artist Guide to Business. And if you have found today's content valuable, I would be really grateful if you could leave a rating or a review on your podcast platform of choice. Your feedback helps other artists discover these resources, and that's what it's all about. So until next time, remember that temporary constraint isn't limiting your creativity, it's focusing it where it can have the most impact. Sometimes the narrower path is actually the faster route to the expansive future you want. Thanks for joining me for another week of The Artist's Guide to Business. Have a great one and keep creating.